Welcome to Team, presented by Cigna, proud partner of the Arizona Cardinals. I'm Kyle Odegard, joined today by Stu Jackson, staff writer for the Los Angeles Rams. And Stu, a pretty exciting Week 17 matchup for both these teams. If the Cardinals win, they make the playoffs. The Rams can guarantee their spot with a victory. What's the general mood of the team here as we look forward to this pivotal game?
Yeah, the prevailing sentiment, Kyle, seems to be that the Rams are just focused on moving forward from last Sunday's loss to the Seahawks and turning their full attention to this Sunday's game against the Cardinals. Obviously, it wasn't the result that they hoped for, as I'm sure was the case with the Cardinals against the 49ers last week. But they know at this point, as you mentioned, that all they can control is, as you mentioned, just win and they're in, basically. And so even with some of the other scenarios at play where, they could get help from another team, their sole focus and mindset right now is trying to come away with a win on Sunday and do it by their own execution rather than somebody else's help.
Yeah, unlike the Cardinals, the Rams can still get in with a Bears loss to the Packers. And looking at this game specifically, there's a lot of talk about John Wolford because he's going to be taking over for Jared Goff, who did have the dislocated and broken thumb last week. What do you know about John? And you might have a better view than anybody since he's never played in a regular season game. There's pretty limited tape. He played actually in Arizona in the AAF with the Arizona Hotshots. But how much have you seen him play, and what do you know about his personality?
Yeah, so he played pretty well, I would say, in the preseason action he saw last year. This would be his second season with the team. But for the most part, his primary role has been, at least for this year, that of scout team quarterback. He's somebody who, even though you saw or have probably seen some ability with Jared Goff, I would say that maybe Wolford offers a little bit more than what Goff has shown in this season and seasons past. And so that brings a new dynamic to the offense. And so he's somebody who's got more mobility, played well and had good command of the offense when, again, he was in action in the preseason. And even this past year, even though there were no preseason games, he still got a chance to show what he could do when the Rams had their second scrimmage at SoFi Stadium. So his teammates have every reason to be confident in him from what they've seen in practice and in those live situations as well. So it'll be really interesting to see him out there on Sunday, though, because obviously this is his first NFL regular season snaps that he'll be taking, in a regular season setting.
Yeah, definitely quite the spot for him. The Cardinals have an injury situation at quarterback as well. Kyler Murray took a shot to his leg last week against the 49ers. Assuming he does play, do you feel like the Rams defense feels pretty decently about this matchup? They handled him pretty well earlier this year. They won twice last year against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. I know he's always a threat with his mobility, but do you have a sense from the defenders how they feel about matching up against the Cardinals offense?
Yeah, haven't had a chance to talk to any of the Rams defensive players yet this week, but I'm sure that based on the previous performance that they'll have an idea of how they can play him. Obviously, they know that, or I'm sure they would be the first to tell you that the performance that Kyler had this past weekend isn't indicative of the quarterback that they'll see on Sunday. Now, I know I believe he's dealing with a lower leg injury, but I mean, again, even if he's not at full strength for whatever reason, but is still able to go, he's still going to be somebody who's a threat with his arm. So they know he's somebody that'll be tough to cover. Fortunately for them, they'll have experience to draw back on from not only the first meeting between these two teams, but also facing quarterbacks with similar skill sets like Russell Wilson and others.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, looking at the running back situation, Chase Edmonds is a guy who's banged up a little bit. He has a hip issue. I know the Rams are dealing with some running back injuries as well. What's the latest on some of those guys that have been pretty key to their offensive success?
Yeah, so there's it's going to be Daryl Henderson heading to IR. He was the next man up with Cam Akers out, the rookie who had a really strong performance against the Jets before sustaining a high ankle sprain, which prevented him from playing against the Seahawks this past weekend. So Henderson probably not going to be going against the Cardinals this weekend, with him again heading to injured reserve. But Sean McVay, the Rams head coach, did say this week that there's a chance that Cam Akers could potentially be available. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. If those guys can't go, names to know are Malcolm Brown, who is the veteran of the group, and someone that running backs coach Thomas Brown has described as Mr. Reliable. And so, again, just that experienced guy who, mostly sees work on, passing downs and in some cases early downs. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how the backfield shakes out, because, if for whatever reason, again, that Akers can't go, you could be potentially looking at Brown, then Xavier Jones, and even Raymond Calais, who was primarily signed as kick returner because of his speed, but may end up being that third running back up, again, depending on how that injury situation shakes out leading into Sunday.
And, we've been talking so much about the offensive injuries that maybe this does become kind of a defensive game. I think everybody knows about Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey for the Rams. Why do you think they've been so successful beyond those two guys? Are there players this season that have really stepped up and thrived that aren't the same household names as that duo?
Yeah, that's been a big part of the Rams' defense's success this season. You look at a guy like cornerback Darius Williams. Brandon Staley early on, it wasn't maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 months into the job, he already could tell that Darius had the cover skills that would translate to the NFL and seemingly into this role that he's taken on this year for the Rams defense. I mean, he pointed back to games against Dallas and San Francisco last year, which again was obviously before he even joined the Rams staff. So that just goes to show you, how much faith even before they hit the field, for training camp in August, and as they were going through virtual meetings in the off season, just how much confidence Staley had in Williams, and almost, I would say, saw this coming. And then you also have to look at Jordan Fuller, rookie out of Ohio State, a 6th-round pick, who caught a lot of people by surprise. He was making plays in training camp, and comes from a program that is obviously known for developing defensive backs, but he ascended pretty quickly and was named a starter. And while he's dealt with injury, when healthy, he's been a really promising and key player for this defense on the back end. So those two guys especially, and then on the defensive line, Sebastian Joseph Day has been enjoying a strong season as well, taking advantage of those double teams that Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers and others can command. So he's playing well. And then at linebacker, I'd point to Leonard Floyd, who's having a career season as well, up to 9.5 sacks, I believe, and has been a really strong edge rush presence for them, like Sebastian Joseph Day, kind of taking advantage of the attention that Donald gathers and being able to get to the quarterback.
It should be a fun game. Obviously, there's so much on the line that I'm sure both teams will be going all out, trying to clinch that playoff berth. Thanks for taking some time with us, and enjoy the game.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, Kyle. Appreciate it.